My name is Dogly. At the start of Genshin Impact 2.0, I made a fun to play tier list, and now that 2.0 is basically ending, we're going to get all the way to 3.0 and Sumeru really soon. I thought now would be a great time to update that tier list to include all of the new characters since the beginning of 2.0, and then also to update how my thoughts and opinions have changed on all of the other characters. So I think I need to stress that this is a fun to play tier list. This is not a meta tier list. These are just the characters that I personally have played a lot and who I've really enjoyed playing or have not enjoyed playing. And I think that your tier list is obviously going to be really, really different, and I really encourage you guys to share your opinions respectfully in the comments down below. Don't start fights with each other or anything like that, but I'm really curious to hear what your most fun to play characters are for all of you. So my tier list is going to be a little bit different than yours, and that's completely okay. It might be a lot different as well, but I'm going to do my best to kind of explain things thoroughly. So what I mean by a fun to play character, I generally tend to look at three different criteria. The first is how unique their mechanics are and how much I want to stay on the field to use those mechanics. I also care a lot about how smooth the character plays, which generally means how well their animations flow into each other, how easy it is to cancel those animations, and then also how well those skills and combos and everything can work well together. The last thing is obviously just going to be my own personal bias, and I just want to acknowledge that it's there. But yeah, so again, how fun they are to play is going to be how much I enjoy them using their unique mechanics on the field, how smooth their animations overall are, how smooth their attacks are, and then third, my personal bias. Because that second criteria, or that very first criteria, really focuses more on how much the characters stay on the field, I'm also going to be doing a second tier list here that's a little bit more dimensional, and this one will allow me to more adequately tell you guys if a character isn't super fun to play on their own, but they make their team more fun. So that's why I have this new kind of extra dimensional tier list here. Fun to play at the top is going to be S rank. Not fun to play is going to be that D rank. So this category just matches the other tier list, but doesn't make your team more fun. Means that I don't think they are making your other characters on the team more fun to play. But even if they don't have a lot of fun themselves, they might make their teammates more fun. So that's why I added this extra kind of dimension here. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, I am going to be using Aether here as Geo Traveller, and I'm going to be using Lumine as Anemo Traveller. And I don't think there'll be a slot for Electro Traveller. I personally haven't played Electro Traveller that much anyway, so I don't think I would want to be able to rank them. And any of these characters here that I do not have at least level 70, I'm going to not include in my ranking, just because it's not fair for me to have an opinion on a character that I don't have fully ascended or nearly fully ascended. But I do have Traveller fully ascended, so I will be talking about Traveller here. I'm going to put Geo Traveller at a B ranking. So I think that Geo Traveller has a lot of interesting mechanics with how they can stack their Geo constructs and how the Geo constructs can interact with each other. He has decent burst potential. Sometimes, though, that burst can really get in the way where it creates a barrier that's hard to navigate around. Sometimes it becomes more like an obstacle. But I'd say Geo Traveller's decently fun. There's enough interesting mechanics to have to kind of really learn and explore the character, but I do feel like he isn't necessarily the most fun to play. Part of it is maybe just my personal bias, the Traveller bias, where a lot of players will think Traveller's a little bit on the weak side. But I think that there's some interesting aspects happening with Traveller. So I think he's a good, solid B for Geo Traveller. And then over here, I'm going to say that he's, I'll say midpoint is probably that going to be B+. Midpoint will be B+ here. He's a little bit below that. Not fun to play, but does he make the team more fun? I would say he only makes your team more fun if it's a team that can somehow interact with the geo constructs. So I would say sometimes, like just weakly. So if it's a character that just wants to do like plunges off of your geo constructs, or if it's more geo constructs interacting with each other, then sometimes. But I would say like generally not the most kind of fun enhancing teammate to have. Up next we have Albedo, which in many respects I think is similar to Geo Traveller, where it has those geo constructs. But I think overall Albedo's burst feels a little bit more smooth to play. But you don't really want to like be on field with Albedo nearly as much. This one's tough. I would say like he's more smooth than Geo Traveller, but you don't necessarily like enjoy his mechanics as much with him on the field. So I'm going to have to put him at B as well. But I do think he significantly makes the teammates more fun. There's a lot of teammates that he has that benefit from the elevator. The fact that the elevator can, at higher constellations, boost your character's plunge damage. It really allows you to use plunging way more than the Geo Traveller's constructs do. And I think that just the like all of those extra numbers that appear, it makes it feel like your on-field characters do more impact overall, even when he's off the field. So I would say he pretty solidly makes the teammates more fun. All right, so up next here is Alloy, which I do not have raised, as well as Amber, so I'm going to be skipping those. And then we move on to Itto, so we're going to a lot of Geo characters. Okay, so I personally, this one's tough. I would either say A+ or S. He's like right up there. I'm gonna say S. I am a big fan of Itto's gameplay. I think the way that his stacks can combo his doing normal attacks will allow you to combo your charge attacks really fast. I feel like he's very smoothly designed. He very heavily relies on his burst, but the elements of his kit from his charge attacks and his stacking mechanics fit really nicely into that burst. And chucking an Ushi across the field is always just something that's really fun to see. So I think I would have to say Itto's pretty darn fun to play, for me at least. Over here, let's see. S, fun to play. Again, like this is a tough thing to grade him on the making your team more fun, because he really only works for Geo teams. So I'm going to just leave him right in the middle there. He doesn't really make the team more fun, but he is an excellent on-field carry who I feel has a lot of nuance to his mechanics, where you can go Unga Boonga and have just fun that way if you're not super well, if you don't know the game's mechanics really well. He's still super Unga Boonga easy to use. But then he also has a lot of mechanics that take a lot of time to learn and a lot of nuance to master. So easy to learn, hard to master kind of character. And I think that just definitely fits what I find in that fun category as well. All right, up next we have Barbara, who I do not have fully raised, so I won't be including her. But since the start of, somewhere in the middle of 2.0, I have fully raised Beidou, so I will be ranking her. And I would say Beidou's a solid A. She probably more often is an off-field support, but her on-field abilities of being able to do that perfect counter is really satisfying when it works. There's just a little incentive for the player to really use Beidou on the field for a super long period of time other than using her skill or her ultimate, and as soon as she uses her ultimate, she wants to switch off the field. So you can't really have too much fun playing her herself, but those few glimpses when you can get that full counter off are, I think, really enjoyable to have. And there is some potential where she can drive other characters, like she could have a Xingqiu use his burst, then she switches onto the field and uses her burst and continues attacking. Sometimes that's decent enough, sometimes that's not very optimal. But yeah, I would say overall, she does enough on the field that's unique that I think I can give her an A ranking. Does she make the team more fun, though? I would say... So I gave her A ranking. I would say most of the time she does. That shield that she provides when you get, I think, just Constellation 1, I believe, but an early Constellation, she gets a shield with her burst. And just having your team being able to be briefly shielded can make them more smooth to play because they don't have to worry about staggering or anything like that. So I'd say, yeah, she makes the team more fun. And then, of course, she adds damage and everything. I would say right around here. Whoops. All right. Up next will be Bennett. This one's always really, really tough because he's a character that I really enjoy his characterization. And he's a character who fits into so many types of teams that, of course, he's a character that many of us have spent a lot of time playing. His on-field time isn't super, super high. I personally find it when he's equipped, when he's more of an offensive build with an Aquila Favonia. The Aquila Favonia isn't his best in slot, but what it does do is it basically provides him one layer of a shield, which can make him more smooth to play. I'm gonna be honest, this has a lot of my personal bias, but I have to put him at A+. He has a lot of different offensive builds that he can run. He can run Thundering Fury, he can run Crimson Witch, he can run supporting builds. But for those more offensive builds where he is kind of carrying, where he's doing a lot of his elemental skill, I feel like he does enough. I would say, like, if you're really good at finding the timing to use the charge of his elemental skill, it's always fun to pull that off, is either a full charge or a half charge. But most of the time you probably won't be using that charge, you'll just be using the tap for that skill. Again, there's probably a fair amount of personal bias on why I'm putting him this high, so take that with a grain of salt as well. And then, of course, I mean, he's the support god, so one of the great things that he can do, in addition to just giving your teammates more damage, is that he's able to he's able to do things like removing and cleansing different conditions on your on-field character, and that ability to cleanse some of the more annoying debuffs, like the hydro debuff that can make your cooldowns really, really high. Bennett's ability to cleanse stuff like that is really, really helpful. And I think that his ultimate circle and its ability to kind of give swirlable pyro can make a lot of other teams more fun. So I have to put Bennett very much in the category that he makes your teammates more fun. He also makes your team more he makes your team way better. This is not a meta tier list by any means, but it's also kind of fun because of all of the ways that he can make that team better, with the swirling, with the debuffing, or with the cleansing, excuse me, and then of course with the buffing as well. All right, up next is Chongyun, who I am also biased on. I would have to put Chongyun. Chongyun is somewhere between A and A minus for me. He's one of my favorite characters, but what I most enjoy about him is his ability to do quick burst damage. He's not on the field a ton, but when he is on the field, I feel like that brief second he's able to do a lot. And because his his burst cost is so low, he's able to use his burst very frequently. He can recharge his burst super quickly and use his burst quite a few times within the scope of, really just a few seconds. So while he isn't on the field too much, he's on the field enough, I would say. So I would say A minus overall. He's really good in terms of the smoothness of how his burst works. I would say he can definitely make a lot of teams more fun as well. I'll put him probably about where Albedo is. Again, he can do a lot in terms of melt teams, a little bit in terms of freeze teams. He can pair and enable a lot of team compositions that are kind of niche but still really fun in their own right. Stuff like turning Zhongli into a cryo attacker can be really fun to do with Chongyun. But yeah, so I'd say he most of the time will make the teammates more fun. And his elemental skill is a big part of that. All right, up next is D-Luke. I have not raised D-Luke, so I'm going to skip him. And the reason why I haven't raised him is because I find his playstyle so unbearably clunky. I think the animations and the lag time between his animations are so long that I personally have not been able to have too much fun with D-Luke. Up next is going to be Diona. I would say Diona's probably in the B tier as well. She does provide those shields, but she really isn't able to capitalize on field time, and there's nothing about her that makes me really enjoy playing with her on the field. You know what? Now that I've said that and thought about it a little bit more, that might actually be more of an indication of her being C tier. But she can really enable and help out other teammates. Again, her shields will make it more smooth for the rest of your team to play. So I would say she's C, but she can make her teammates more fun. There's not too much else to say, so I'll kind of just move on then to Eula. So I do have Eula fully raised on one of my accounts. I would say, I would put Eula at A+, because building her stacks and getting a lot of that burst damage is really fun thing to do. It's a kind of interesting mechanic. I would say like one of the things that's really holding her back is just how, if you're not using Song of Broken Pines, her skill time, her movement speed, her attack speed, excuse me, is pretty slow, which can kind of be a little bit of a drag. That itself is more of a problem of Claymore characters in general, but I feel like stuff like her normal attacks don't really combo well with her elemental skill. Um, but her elemental burst kind of hard carries her. Um, Again, now that I'm like tempted. She's like somewhere between A and A plus, but I'll leave her at A plus for now. However, I think one of the things about Eula is that she's a very greedy character, kind of like Razor, where she doesn't make the team more fun. She is your on-field character, and that's about it. She doesn't really add to the funness of any of your teammates. So again, she is A plus, but she's not really a team fun character. Up next is Fishl. So Fishl is a character who I've only recently raised. So I raised her after getting her C6 from the new event, from the new Golden Island Archipelago event. So I got her to C6. So my bias in this reading is that I'm talking about a C6 Fishl. I'm not talking about lower constellations. So I've never played Fishl without C6, so I can't really compare that too much. But I would say Fishl herself has a lot of interesting mechanics, but a lot of them that you don't really use. Stuff like her ability to like hit Oz with an arrow and then Oz does extra damage, then Oz does extra damage. Stuff like that is useful, but it's not really. I mean, stuff like that is fun, but it's not really useful enough to warrant using it that much. This one's tough. I would say Fishl is probably B tier for me. I think that one of the things that holds her back the most is that there's a lag time after using her elemental burst. You can't just tap her elemental burst and then like hit one enemy and immediately get out of it. There's a little bit of that lag time that kind of makes her not super smooth to play. But she has a lot of interesting mechanics overall. So I think B is pretty fair for Fishl. But I do think she has a tendency to make a lot of teams more fun. So B, I said right, was in the middle here. In particular, she makes electrocharge teams more fun, especially at C6 because of how much she's able to apply electro to those teams. And yeah, just having Oz on the field can provide a lot of support and just make those teams more fun. You know, she doesn't have a shield like Beidou has, so she doesn't help the smoothness of your team, but it kind of just falls in that Albedo category of giving your team extra damage and a little bit of extra elemental reactions, which can make them more fun to play. All right, up next is Ganyu. So in my original tier list, I think I had Ganyu in S. I think I'm going to be moving her down a little bit to A+. Simply because I haven't really felt the need to play Ganyu that much in 2.0 through 2.8. It's probably more just because I've been having more fun with other characters, but I think Ganyu still deserves A+, and I think for players who don't play on a controller, you won't really be able to understand this. But for controller players where you're not playing with a mouse and keyboard, one of the most fun things about Ganyu is that she's really the only real sniper in the game, long distance attacker. This is mostly in the overworld. I find whenever I'm in the abyss, I can't really time things quite right, even on controller. When I use her in the abyss, she's more of a supporting character. I just use her for burst support. But in the overworld, I have a lot of fun playing her as a long distance sniper just because there's no other character who can do that when you're on controller. And the reason why I say this, and I really want to make this clear, is because aiming with bow characters on controller is awful. It's flat out horrendous. It sucks so much. But because Ganyu's charge attacks can splinter, it makes aiming so much easier, and it just makes bow characters, specifically her herself as a bow character, it makes her feel like she plays so much smoother on controller. If you're someone who plays on PC with mouse and keyboard, you might not notice how different she plays compared to other bow characters, but for those of us who play on controller, it's like night and day for how smooth she plays. I would say she can make teams more fun. So A+ is up here with Bennett. When she's used as burst support, she can make teams more fun, but at that point, it's more of just applying that extra damage and that extra elemental reactions. So again, I'll have to line it up with Albedo and everything else. One of the other things is that her E can provide an extra taunt, which can then help do a little bit of crowd controlling, which can make your team a little bit smoother to run as well. All right, just wanted to scroll down there a little bit. Okay. Up next is Gorou. This one's tough. I feel like Gorou is pretty much in that same kind of realm as Diona is, where I don't think he has enough unique mechanics to warrant you actually playing as him, and he is mostly then just going to be a character that helps support your team. So I'm going to have to put him at C for fun to play himself. But he can make your teams more fun to play. He doesn't really provide shields, but he can provide healing, and he of course provides extra damage for Geo teams. His ability there is a little bit more niche, so I'll put him more so in the middle, where he can make certain teams more fun. All right, up next is Hu Tao. Hu Tao is an interesting character because if you're able to do her jump cancels or her just her animation cancels in generally, if you're able to master that really well, then it greatly improves how fun she is. But if you can't mechanically time it just right to get those cancels to work properly, then she feels really clunky and not smooth at all. I would say like at best she's like adequate smoothness if you get really good at those cancels, but most of the time she's not that great at those animation cancels. And one of the things that holds her back a little bit as well is that she isn't able to stay on the field for a super long period of time. She uses her skill until it runs out, and then she has to go on cooldown. And then she's not doing like super crazy unique things when she is on that field. It's kind of just, pressing buttons, trying to do your cancels, and that's about it. There's not too much unique things that are happening there. So now that I've said that, I probably talked myself into B. Actually, I think like her characterization is really, really fun. Like her character personality, I really enjoy. Her design, I think, is pretty good. But in terms of just how fun she is to play, I'll have to put her into the B ranking. And much like Eula, I don't think she really makes the team more fun to play as well. The one thing is she can apply those kind of pyro marks, which can then do some cool things with a teammate, but most of the time that doesn't really take effect. So I'll put her in C, or sorry, B, and then really doesn't make your team more fun though. All right, up next is Jean. I mean, Jean's like a really simple, basic attacker, and I personally don't like how much effort it takes to, how much time it takes to properly utilize her her elemental skills, suction ability to, like, you know, raise enemies up and fling them and drop them for fall damage. But the fact that she can do that is really fun. I just wish that she was able to do that in a faster, more smooth way. But that itself is probably a pretty unique mechanic. But I don't know if it warrants B+. This is torn. Like, again, just like Hu Tao, this is between B+ and B. Other than that, she doesn't really have any unique mechanics. While B is a little bit lower here, please keep in mind that B does not mean anything bad. I mean, B is still a good ranking. And then she can make some teams more fun. I mean, her burst can do a few things. I don't think it does as much. It can do some fun stuff like Sunfire teams, but I'd say it's more along the line of like Gorou, where it has a niche where it can make other teams more fun, but it's not super more fun all together on its own. Up next is Kazuha. Come on, we all know what's happening here. No, come on, tier list. Don't scroll block me. There we go. Kazuha is S fun. I feel like he's one of the most universally fun characters for a lot of players, and it's just how he's able to so smoothly chain between his elemental skill, his burst. If you have C1, then he can do the EQE combo. He has a lot of off-field capabilities, but he's so fun on-field that while he might be a better support character, so many players play him as a main DPS just because of how fun his elemental skill is and how smooth his animations are for his normal and charge attacks as well. So I have to put Kazuha as S rank. Just so fun to play. That plunging is just something really enjoyable, and because he has such a low cooldown on his skill, it allows you to really just have a lot of fun with that plunge as well. So I have to put Kazuha, let me scroll down a bit, Kazuha in this top corner where he's super fun to play and he makes your teammates more fun. Again, he offers a lot of great support, and he can, you know, further increase those abilities of your teammates, which can make them more fun to play. In this case, like, it's a little bit of it's both the extra damage, which sure, extra damage is more meta, but it's also then that he's able to activate a bunch of different strategies with your team. That EM boost that he's able to provide, the elemental damage boost that he's able to provide, it just enables more variation in team comps and team strategy. So of course that's a meta aspect, but because it influences strategy and it influences how the other teams are played so much, I would say it also constitutes fun to play stuff as well. All right, up next is Kaya, who I do not have raised, so I'll be skipping Kaya, and then we have Ayaka. So Ayaka, I'm gonna put Ayaka in A+. I think that some players are really turned off with how her dash works, but I personally have played Ayaka enough that I've kind of gotten the hang of it. So I think her dash works pretty well. Like, I'm able to time it just right. Her normals and her charge attacks chain really, really well together. I feel like she's a character who, like, every part of her kit is something you want to utilize and have fun with. And it all just is so cohesive. If you're somebody who doesn't like that dash, though, that might be a deal breaker for you. So I can respect if you disagree with me, but I feel like I'm somebody who's been able to get that dash to time and to work really well. So I think, yeah, like, she's a super smooth character. I want to use her on field a lot of the time. Her animations are really fun. So I gotta put Ayaka at A+. She doesn't really make your teammates more fun, though. So I'll put her... Like, there are some things that she can do. Like, her burst can provide a little bit of support if you used her burst and then switch to another teammate. But generally, that's pretty much of a niche thing. The other aspects of her kit really don't pair well. So I'll say she is fun to play herself, but she's mostly greedy character. Not as greedy as Eula or Hu Tao, but she doesn't really make the teammates more fun. Up next is Keqing. Okay, so Keqing's really hard to gauge. I would say, like, it's really fun to kind of go all ninja mode with Keqing. I personally don't think she's a good character, so I don't play her that much. But, like, let's just say if her normal or charge attacks or something, if her damage was buffed in some mechanical way, then I probably would play her a lot more, because I do find that playstyle pretty fun. I just don't think that she's super strong, so I don't use her as much. But I really do like the kind of ninja mode aspect. I wish the time it took to cast her burst was a little bit smoother, but overall, just how well her elemental skill chains into her normal and charge attacks, and how well that can change into her burst. I think she's worthy of a fun tier, A rank on the fun to play tier list. But I feel like she really doesn't offer, like, anything at all for your team's kind of support, though. So I don't think she makes your team more fun to play. Maybe when Sumeru comes out and we get more Dendro reactions, maybe she might be able to kind of make different teams more fun. But at this time, I don't think she really does. But yeah, she's definitely, like, I mean, we have a new ninja in Kuki Shinobu, but I feel like Keqing, as this kind of fast attacking ninja-like character, she just has really smooth normal attacks primarily, and how well it chains with her elemental skill. Up next is Klee, who I don't have, so I'll have to be skipping Klee. And then we have Kujou Sara. So I'm going to be putting Kujou Sara in D. No, it's tough. Like, her burst is really fun to use, but that's it. Like, other things feel so unfun to play as. Like, it feels so awkward, like, chaining and using her elemental skill. There's, like, such a... something about the animation feels, like, unsmooth to me. Her burst, though, is kind of fun. Oof. I'll be putting her in C tier, I guess. Like, she's between C and D here. I just don't have enough space on my screen to have that C- or D+ tier here. So I'd say she's somewhere between there, though. And again, like, I find her elemental skill and then her normal attacks as well. both of them just seem slow and clunky. Her burst is kind of fun to use though. But again, like if you use her burst and get off the field, you're doing it more so to support the rest of your team, not because you actually want to play as Kujou Sara. But of course, she can definitely make Electro teams more fun to play. It's not like it's more so in the meta range where she makes those teams more fun to play. But it's not like a game changing kind of thing. It's more of like you get the extra support, so you want to use those other Electro teammates more. So like a very, very weakly, she makes your other team more fun to play. Now, in terms of more of just like characterization, design, personality, and stuff like that, Kujou Sara is actually one of my favorite characters from Inazuma. So I enjoy like building her, and I enjoy using her in teams, but I just don't enjoy playing as her. Up next is Anemo Traveller. I think Anemo Traveller is a solid B+. I really like the kind of the section ability from the elemental skill. You do feel a little bit rewarded when you use those normal attacks to kind of get that last hit that does a kind of long range Anemo strike. I don't like how the burst works. I feel like the burst for Anemo Traveller is really not smooth. You have to be really precise where you aim it. And if you're not like really good at using that elemental burst, most of the time it's going to do like almost nothing. It can so easily miss its targets. So excuse me. Yeah, I just think that the burst for Anemo Traveller is what kind of holds Anemo Traveller back a lot. But the elemental skill boosts Anemo Traveller overall, I would say. I don't know if Anemo Traveller like really makes teams more fun to play. B+ is right in the middle. I would say like it like certain teams like can definitely benefit from the swirling ability, but for the most part, it's not really changing how fun they are to play. I wouldn't say like it's to the point where Anemo Traveller is so greedy that she doesn't really do much, but I would say probably closer to that Ayaka range then. You can do some fun things with the burst if you time it right, but you got to be really fast. All right, up next is Mona. Like I've almost raised Mona to 70, but not quite. Like I would say if I had to rank Mona, it would be B tier. But because I haven't, quite gotten Mona high leveled enough to the point where I feel comfortable doing this, I'm not gonna rank her. I am sadly not qualified. But then is Ningguang. Ningguang is, I actually think Ningguang is a really fun to play character. I would say like in that same range as Eula, Ayaka, like somewhere in that range where on field she can be really satisfying. I would say she might even be like a little bit more fun than something like Eula. I'm not going to be ranking in between the categories, but if I was, I probably would rank her higher than Eula. Yeah, so what I find fun about her is how well things can chain together. Every part of her kit feels cohesive and like it's working towards a common goal. You use her normal attacks to build stacks. You use those you consume those stacks to get a powerful charged attack. You can also then help boost your burst damage, and then at higher constellations, using that burst can create stacks that will help your charge attack damage. And then at a somewhat low constellation, you get the ability to like get not quite an extra charge on her elemental skill, but it's more of your you're able to chain her elemental skill kind of like what Kazuha does, where you can do like an EQE kind of thing. But like that constellation basically allows her to use her elemental skill more often under certain conditions, and it makes the whole kit feel more rewarding to use together. So yeah, I would say out of all of the characters in A plus, I would probably put Ningguang at the highest of those so far. The catch, of course, is Ningguang's a pretty selfish character. Oof, this is tough. So I'm gonna like put her again like somewhere between A plus and S, because I do view her near that top. But yeah, she's right there then. Doesn't really make the team more fun. I mean, I guess like her barrier can sometimes help out the team, but not really. I mean, she can get crystallized reactions, which can give your team shields, which can help. I guess yeah, like she can get a lot of crystallize for those shields. So I guess I'll put her something more like here. But yeah, Ningguang is one of the characters that I've newly raised in the 2.0 kind of range of patches, and I've had a lot of fun playing as her. I don't think she's super good and super meta, but when I do play her, I really enjoy the playstyle. All right, Noelle. Noelle's interesting because she has a lot of mechanics that are kind of unique to her. I mean, her shielding and healing ability, her elemental burst. She's one of the few characters in the game who can truly be a jack of all trades. In terms of, she can be a healer, a tank, and a damage dealer. But there's just a little bit of a lack of smoothness in that kit. I feel like if you're pairing her with something like a C6 Yunjin, then it solves the Claymore's lag time and makes her more smooth to play. Of course, because C6 Yunjin gives that extra attack speed. But you're really not gonna, outside of that, she's gonna feel pretty darn clunky, I would have to say. So I might have to actually lower her to B, just because it's the Claymore lag. No, B plus, because her burst is kind of fun. Just, whirling around that giant golden sword. And then she does have a pretty strong shield, so she can make your teammates decently more fun. Up next is QiQi, who I have. I think I do have her level 70, yeah. So this just might be some of my bias because she isn't a good meta character at all, so I don't enjoy playing and seeing all of those weak numbers. But I feel like she's just a character who doesn't, like, her normal animations, I feel like aren't super good. I don't think that her burst and her skill like actually do much and add that much value. Yeah, I kind of just don't feel like she does much of anything unique or interesting. And I'm sorry for all of those of you who do enjoy playing QiQi, but just not the character for me. But she can, provide those healings, provide some cryo application, so she can make teammates more fun. But yeah, I don't have too much to say about QiQi. Raiden Shogun. Okay. I think she's an interesting character because when she's using her burst, she can definitely feel like she's really fun to play. But I don't like how her other attacks really work. Her burst is fun. I don't like her elemental skill, and I don't really like her normal attacks. or her charge attacks. Those just aren't very smooth, I don't think. But her burst is fun. So I guess that kind of matches everything that I said about Noelle. So I'll put her in B+ then. Her burst is fun, everything else is kind of clunky. However, she makes the rest of your team pretty darn fun. So Noelle was here. Just the ability to recharge your teammates. Also ability to give them extra electro applications and everything. But yeah, like if you're able to use your other teammates' burst more often, that just makes your teammates more fun. All right, let's see. Up next is Razor. I feel like Razor, out of all of the Claymore characters, I feel like Razor's elemental skill, it's tough. So his elemental hold skill has a pretty long charge time, which makes it feel clunky, but then at least you get the reward of being able to recharge energy. His press skill, I think, is actually pretty smooth, but the extra mechanic of, using a press and then using a hold to get that extra energy back, I think is something that's kind of unique to Razor, so that uniqueness kind of pushes him further. Of course, being one of the few physical attacking characters is also pretty unique. So I think he earns B+. Whoops. But I don't think he makes your team more fun at all. He's just like Eula, just like Keqing, a very greedy character where when you're using him, it's because you want to use him. He doesn't really make your team fun at all. I mean, like, you could argue that Superconduct, like, he makes it more fun for your other physically attacking teammates, but that playstyle is so not really utilized that I don't think it's worth that much. And he doesn't change the fun factor for them, he just makes it so those teammates hit harder. All right, let's see. Kokomi. Okay. Kokomi's interesting. I would probably put Kokomi in A. And here I'm talking probably more so about an offensive Kokomi than a supporting Kokomi, because I do think that just her elemental burst itself is probably pretty darn fun. Now that I don't think she is probably quite as fun as Keqing now that I'm thinking about it, but probably A-, like Chongyun. Like, it does feel like every aspect of her kit fits well together. Where using her elemental burst helps out and recharges her elemental skill, and then it also then works well with her normals. I would say her normal attacks are pretty fun to use, but I don't like using her charge attacks, even though under some conditions they're better to use. But I just feel like her normal attacks are pretty smooth and her charge attacks aren't very smooth. Her burst is pretty fun to use when you can use it right, though. Again, it's probably not like super meta to use her in that kind of DPS role, but when you do, it's pretty fun. And then she can definitely make teammates more fun to play. Providing healing, so providing healing and hydro for elemental reactions can just ease the burden on what your other teammates have to do. So in that regard, it's probably like right on Chongyun in that same spot, but I don't want to overlap too much, so I don't want to like obscure Chongyun's face, so I'll put it just to the side. Rosaria, I don't have fully raised, so I can't talk about, but then we have Sayu. So I'm going to put Sayu in A+. So I think in my original video, I had Sayu in S, and then I also had an S+ tier, but this time I've slightly rearranged things. I'm gonna have to put Sayu at A plus as fun to play just because that swirling mechanic is so unique to Sayu. I do feel like her normals are a little bit slow. That's just the Claymore problem overall again. So the normals aren't super smooth, but for when you would be using her, you're using her for her burst or her skill, and those I think work really smoothly. And I really enjoy just going into rolling mode, and it's a super unique, super fun kind of thing. Again, she's not meta at all. She sucks in the meta, but she's really fun to play. And now that I'm like looking at this, I'm gonna have to readjust Bennett. I'm gonna have to drop Bennett down to A, just because like I'm looking at Bennett and I'm looking at all of the other characters, and all of these other characters have something about them that are more fun to play as Bennett. So I'm sorry, Bennett. I'll knock you down a spot. So we move Bennett down, and then Sayu as A plus. Sayu. I don't know if she really makes her team more fun to play. She can provide swirling and healing and so forth, but that's, you know, kind of minor to the overall fun of that team. I would say though, like as a kind of driver for Xiangling in particular, she can be really fun. Like there's just something like super satisfying about driving Xiangling with a Sayu. So I gotta say a little bit of fun to play for the teammates, for certain teammates. Let's see. Now we have Shenhe. All right. I gotta put Shenhe in tier C. Again, like there's nothing like super rewarding about using her. It's more of what she enables for her team. So we're gonna jump over to that. And she enables basically mono cryo teams. She enables, like if you use her with Chongyun, you can like do some crazy teams like I mentioned earlier, cryo Zhongli. So she can do some really fun things that way. But that relies on like very kind of specific supports, I would say. So I'd put her down around there then. Up next is Sucrose. So I think Sucrose is kind of mildly fun to play on her own. She's a decent driver. She can do some crowd control. Like every part of her kit feels rewarding. It's just that the smoothness between elements can feel kind of slow. Like I think like just the time it takes for her to drop her elemental burst can be a little bit jarring sometimes. Like it doesn't feel like a very smooth or instant transaction there. But I'd say she's pretty darn fun to play on her own. And I think she definitely can do a lot of things in terms of making teammates more fun. So I would put her then like right with Raiden. I just don't want to overlap Raiden's face. But yeah, like I'd say she does a lot in terms of maybe not quite as much as Raiden, so maybe putting her like just shy of that is fair. But just the way that her burst can interact with her teammates, I think is pretty satisfying. Yeah, tough to call it's tough to make that call of exactly how much more fun she makes her teammates. So I might change that later, might slide her down, but I think she does make her team more fun. Up next is Thoma. I'm gonna put Thoma in A. And again, like he's bad in the meta, but I really like the smoothness of his animations. And I feel like it feels like every part of his kit is impactful. I wish every part of his kit did more damage, but every part of it works together in a kind of smooth mechanic way. While you don't really want to be on field with him too much, he can be a decent kind of driver for Xingqiu or for for Yelan. But you don't necessarily need him to be on the field. I would say like the main thing that pushes him above the other characters like Chongyun or even like the B plus ones is just I think his animations are so smooth. Like just his movement in general I really like. So that's why main reason why he gets to A. Again, not a great meta character. And I think he makes your teammates way more fun. So A is here. Again, like he's right up there with Bennett, I think. If anything, maybe even higher. I don't know, like the shielding, the way that his elemental burst can refresh the shielding when he's not on the field. His constellations can provide a lot of extra fancy support as well. But yeah, the shield is huge. Up next we have Venti. Venti is like an A minus or B plus, and I gotta figure out which. His burst is super satisfying. His elemental skill can give some unique applications, getting that air tunnel and that teammates can use, but it's probably impractical to utilize that a lot of the time, but it's an option. I don't like his normals or his charge attacks, but his burst and his skill can be pretty fun. So I'll say A minus for Venti. And certain teams, his burst makes them really fun to use. But other teams, it can be a problem where if the character like can't hit the enemies after they're sucked into the burst, that can be a problem. But I'd say for most teams, he makes them more fun. I said A minus, right? Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Let's see. Up next is Childe. So I really do like using Childe on field. I feel like once he uses his elemental skill, his normal attacks and his charge attacks work super smoothly together. You have the unique mechanic of the Riptide. His burst is fairly satisfying, and the fact that he basically has two different bursts is a pretty unique thing. He's a pretty unique character overall. I would have to say A plus. Like after saying all of those things, like he just meets my A plus criteria. He just has a lot of those fun character moments or character elements to him. I think that in terms of meta, I wouldn't rank him this high, but in terms of just what he offers, how unique he is, and how all of those mechanics can operate pretty smoothly together, I would have to say he's A plus. And then he can make certain teams more fun, but he's like his Riptide can interact well with like characters like Kazuha, but I would say he's kind of more neutral, kind of like Arataki Itto, where he doesn't make your team less fun and he can synergize well with certain teammates, but it's kind of in that niche range. Up next is Xiangling. I gotta put her as B. Again, like she's extremely meta. She has some unique mechanics in terms of like I think she's like the only character who can provide off-field support with both her skill and her burst, which can be really helpful in making your team more fun and more efficient. But her herself, like I don't really feel like I'm rewarded. I don't really like her animations. I feel like she's not a very smooth character to play as by herself. But she's so fun for your team, and she can enable a lot of meta reasons for your team, but also This is tough to grade. I'd say like, again, like some things like pairing her with Sayu can create a super fun kind of team dynamic. So I'd say most of the time she makes your teammates more fun. Up next we have Xingqiu. And I would say he's again probably between the C and the B tier. In many ways, he's very similar to Xiangling. His elemental skill is really satisfying to use, so because of that, I'll up him up to a B. I guess there's nothing like really wrong about his animation, like his normal animations. He's fairly smooth to use, but he's not like, I feel like there's a little bit of a lag time with his normals. But yeah, I guess solid B. Basically the same as Xiangling. One of the things is that he provides damage reduction and stagger resistance, which can make other teams more fun, our teammates smoother overall. Not a ton to say about Xingqiu. Up next is Xinyan, who I do not have raised, so I'll be skipping her. Then we have Yae Miko. This one's tough. Like I've changed my mind on Yae Miko so many times that I don't really know where she lands. I feel like her normals and her charge attacks are so painfully slow that she can be annoying. There's something like really fun about using the turrets the first time, but the fact that you have to deploy them a second time after using them is very not smooth. But just being able to drop the turrets can be smooth. I don't know. Like it's, again, like I'm a mess when it comes to this. Like I've had so many different experiences and thoughts playing Yae Miko. And sometimes she can be worthwhile to use. Her burst can be really fun to use, but there's that cost of it resetting her totems. So it's all a mess. I'm just gonna say B because I don't trust myself. Like tomorrow I might think she's A. The next day I might think she's C. So I'm just gonna call her B. But I think she can definitely make teammates more fun. She doesn't provide the shards that Albedo provides, but she can definitely provide a ton of electro application, which can definitely be really fun to interact with other teammates. Up next is, so I think I might have skipped over Xiao, but I don't have Xiao. One of the few characters I don't have at all. Yanfei. Okay, so Yanfei is again another interesting character where I have recently raised her like somewhere around 2.6 or something, 2.5. It was whenever the Xiao banner, the last Xiao rerun happened is when I raised Yanfei. I feel like every part of her kit synergizes well together, but at the same time, every part of her kit is clunky. So it's that weird mix where everything satisfyingly like fits together, but it's still kind of clunky. Like everything is kind of slow. It feels like you're almost like watching a video playing at 0.75 speed when you're playing Yanfei, which is kind of unusual for a Catalyst character. Like for a Catalyst character, she has pretty slow animations. Kind of like Yae Miko. Once you get constellations, her shield can make your teammates more fun. But yeah, she like everything in her kit is unique and fits together, but there's just that lag time. And now we have Yoimiya. So Yoimiya is my newest character that I've raised. I honestly, I just find her so simple. The infusion is like the fire infusion is kind of interesting. You only really have Hu Tao who also does that, but I just don't find her super fun. I think like the biggest thing is just that how often she can miss her attacks, and like she constantly moves backwards when you're using her bow, when you're using her normal attacks, and so often it'll move her so far back that her attacks start missing, which I think can be kind of annoying. So I'm gonna put her in C. Like she's parts of her kit are kind of unique. I actually find her charge attacks kind of more fun than her normal attacks. It's just her charge attacks are so bad compared to her normal attacks that you wouldn't realistically ever use them. But yeah, I'll say C. And I feel like she doesn't really make your team more fun in any meaningful way either. All right, up next is Yunjin. So like Beidou, she has that kind of perfect counter ability. But I feel like it just doesn't quite do as much as Beidou's does. Not in terms of damage, but I mean it just doesn't feel as rewarding. Like the animation isn't quite as smooth. I would probably put her in C tier. Again, like there's nothing about her animations feel particularly smooth. In terms of a support, she is absolutely godly for both Yoimiya and for Ayato. So she's really good meta for those niche teams, but I can't really say that she's fun to play herself. But she can make those teammates more fun to play. So I said C, but makes a lot of different teammates more fun. All right, up next is Zhongli. Again, like it's really weird where like starting his normal attack sequence is a very lag kind of not fun thing, but once you do his like charge attacks, those can be really smooth and satisfying. His burst takes a long time to cast. His pillar can sometimes be fun. Like he has a lot of different unique mechanics that are interesting, but just the lag time between all of them doesn't make him super fun himself, I would say. So I'd say C for Zhongli, but that shield is so crazy that it provides a lot for the team. So it can definitely make your teammates more fun. Let's see, Ayato. Ayato's another really tricky one where like there are some times where I play him and I feel like he's so fun and so smooth. The like how when you're holding his normal attacks after using his elemental skill, how he automatically kind of moves forward. That just feels pretty smooth. Just the animations themselves are pretty smooth. It's just like there's sometimes there's just it feels like he doesn't do a lot of mechanically interesting things. Like he has unique mechanics, but they don't amount to something that feels super satisfying. He feels smooth, but not satisfying. So for that reason, I would have to put him. Oof. Like there are some times when I play him when he probably feels more like A. There are other times when I play him where he feels more like B plus. So I'll put him in the middle. I know like I've just probably said a lot of bad things, but like he is super smooth to play. So I gotta reward that as well. So A minus. His burst support can make your other teammates more fun. I'll put him like somewhere near Venti. Up next we have Kuki Shinobu. This one's, for being a ninja, she does not have the attack speed like Keqing has. She doesn't feel smooth. Her burst is actually really fun to use though. This is tough. I'm gonna say C. She can make certain teams more fun to play, but I feel like I feel like she doesn't really occupy a niche that's super worthwhile though. I'm hoping that as Dendro is released, she'll be able to do a lot more, and maybe that'll make her more fun for the team. But I feel like her kit, like her burst is kind of fun, but that's about it. I don't think she'll ever be like a fun character to play on her own, but hopefully she'll make her teams more fun. Now we have Yelan. I just really like the smoothness of her elemental skill, and it's pretty unique. Sometimes it feels like you're doing a lot of running just to do that damage, but it does feel like the damage is high enough that you're rewarded with that payoff. The extra work feels like it's worth it. Her burst is really smooth to use. Her skill is really smooth to use. I really don't like using her normal attacks. Well, I guess they're not bad. They're not bad. Her skill is super fun though, so I got to put her in A+ because of how unique and fun that skill is. If her normals were just a little bit better, I could see her as being an S fun to tier character. She can definitely make teammates more fun with that ramping damage and with the extra hydro application. So I'd say like probably somewhere tied with Sayu. All right. And then lastly, we have Heizou. Yeah, I think Heizou is really fun. Excuse me that I might be switching back on the pronunciation because I'm not quite sure if it's Heizou or Heizou. So I apologize for that. But I think he's I feel like this is recency bias. I'm gonna be completely honest with that, but I'm gonna say S tier. I feel like I did have a little bit of recency bias with Sayu as well. And when I first did my original tier list, and since then, Sayu dropped from S to A+ between my two videos here. So there's a chance that Heizou might drop if I ever do another tier list, but currently I've just been having a lot of fun with Heizou. Heizou is one of the few characters that I have at level 90 on all 3 of my accounts, which I think itself is just a testament to how much I enjoy playing the character. His animations are super smooth. His charged and his normals feel different enough, but they both feel smooth and like you feel like you're rewarded for playing them. The stack mechanic is interesting and really rewarding when you use it. The burst, while it doesn't deal as much damage as I'd like, it feels really rewarding to use. Yeah, like I feel like I can't say there's anything about Heizou's kit at this time that would prevent me from giving him that full S ranking. Again, as maybe recency bias will fall away, but you know, just having that punching character is so unique. The animations work so well together, and I've been having a lot of fun playing as Heizou, and I hope you guys have as well, especially those of you who were able to summon for him. I feel like he doesn't really make your team more fun. He's kind of like right there in that Artaki Itto range. I mean, sometimes that minimal amount of crowd control can be helpful. But yeah, I would say that's about it then. That's how I'd rank all of these characters. So there's a number of characters who I don't have raised, so I don't feel comfortable ranking them. We have these 3 Sumeru characters that we'll get our hands on in 3.0 in just a few days, so I'll be excited to play them and test them as well. I'm a little bit torn on like if I'm gonna be summoning for Tighari. I know that the English videos have been pronouncing his names as Tainari, but I've watched other videos that have been saying the correct pronunciation is more of a Tig sound, Tignari. So I'm not quite sure what we should be saying there. So, but like I really like his character design, but I don't know how fun he'll be to play, and I don't know if I'll be summoning for him. But if I do, I'll definitely show my video for that and update that. One of the most things, or one of the things that I'm looking most forward to in 3.0 is just the extra artifacts added to the artifact strongbox system. So I'll be having a lot of fun with that, and some of my earliest videos will probably just be using the artifact strongboxes. But yeah, I think this about sums up my tier list for all of these characters. It might take me a while, but I'm going to be doing a little bit of editing in terms of adding chapters for every individual character so that you guys can easily jump between the characters. I'm going to be really looking forward to Dendro and seeing how that can kind of breathe new life into how fun all of these characters are. Once you just introduce a whole new element, it can kind of really shake things up and just change the enjoyment of so many characters. But yeah, I guess at this point in time, the characters that I find most fun to play are Arataki Itto, Heizou, and then at the very top of my list will be, of course, Kazuha. But let me know who your favorite characters to play as are. Let me know where I got things wrong on my list. But just be respectful to each other. Don't try to start fights or anything like that. And I'll see you guys pretty much in Sumeru then. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I know this has been a pretty long video. Holy crap, I might have to edit this down. But yeah, take care, and I'll see you guys in Sumeru. Bye.